Good to see you, mate. It's been a while. I just made the comment that when you walk into someone's house, you can tell whether they're still in love with boxing or not when there's boxing stuff all over the walls. I cleansed my house with boxing stuff a few years ago when I sort of had a tough time with boxing. I don't see much on your walls boxing related.
No, it's very much a family home, and to be honest with you, I moved in here. We bought this house just before I had my first world title fight with Arthur Abraham, and it was about 3 or 4 months before the fight that we actually bought it and moved in. About 8 weeks before the fight, 7 weeks before the fight, we had scaffold on the house. I was doing little bits and bobs in there, painting doors and all that, like whatever limited stuff that I could do. But it was never ever going to be like boxing everywhere, you know, and pictures on the walls and everything else, and you know, belts or whatever it might be. All the belts I won ended up in the pub that sponsored me, the Grapes, my friend's pub. They were all up behind the bar in there. I didn't necessarily fall out of love with it and not put it up specifically and purposely. I just sort of, it was never going to get up. You know, there's a few wedding photos, there's photos of the kids and family members, but I think that's what the living room was always going to be. I see boxers who do it. I see some boxers set ups and the living room and it looks lovely and they've got a couple of belts up, and you know, the likes of Tyson Fury stand, that's some standing. I wouldn't have minded that one. You know, every belt there is to win that's got any meaning is up in his house, and it's great and it looks great. But for us, it was always sort of going to be family.
You know, when you start off in the boxing journey, there's a lot of passion and a lot of enthusiasm. When you come out of it the other side, there's a lot less naivety, isn't there?
Yeah, I think the industry beats it out here, personally, and it's not the nicest game. There's not the nicest people in it, but then in other terms, there's the nicest, the most friendliest, genuine people that you'll ever meet in your life in it. But it's up and down boxing. On the top scale, there's great people and people you'll remain lifelong friends with, and then at the lower end of it, it's just dogs, and it does leave you disheartened a lot of the time, boxing, where you think, well, what's the point? And yeah, that's probably what happened with me towards the end. You know, the passion does go, because it's just it's a job, it's an industry, and it's a bit of a, you know, it's not the nicest of places. When you first start out, you're full of joys of spring and you're full of beans and you want to just do the best you can and
be around all the greats,
yeah,
and all the rest
get on
of it.
Sky.
Yeah.
And when I first turned pro, I was with Hatton and I was buzzing and I was learning off him every day, and Billy Graham, you know, two of the most knowledgeable people I've met in boxing, and around a buzzing gym. And I've always sort of been around buzzing gyms because I couldn't have done it by myself. I couldn't have trained by myself, and I remember that life you had and that passion and enthusiasm, jumping out of bed, made up, and then it becomes a point somewhere where it just gets beaten out of you, and all of a sudden it's a job. I've got a picture somewhere in the house. I'll probably find it. There's a black and white one downstairs. It's not because it was black and white times, but it's just the way the picture came out.
It shows your age now.
It's me and that Stephen. And Stephen's on one couch reading a boxing news, and he must have been 6, maybe 5, 6. And I'm on the other couch being 8 or 9, reading a Flex magazine. What my dad used to just have. My dad had boxing news and bodybuilding magazines, and we love Liverpool and the football and that, but we all just love boxing in our house. And on the telly in the background is an old VHS of Fabulous 4, which we must have watched every day until the tape broke. Leonard, Hagler, Hearn, Sheeran, and we all had our favourites. Mine was always Leonard, and I just wanted to be like them, and we all did. And again, I've got other pictures downstairs of when I'm probably like 5, 6, and Stephen's 2 or 3. Both now boxer shorts with a pair of them gloves on, what you used to get from the punch ball that you'd buy every Christmas, so you get both for you. So it was always sort of in our blood, and I did used to rush home to want to read like the boxing news when my dad would get it. He'd have it on order out the shop, and I'd usually have to go and get it for him on the bike, being the eldest lad, and I'd come back and he'd read it first, and then when he'd finished with that, I'd have a read through. And it was always the likes of sort of, you know, the early stages of Ben Eubank and the likes coming through. It was all black and white. I think it just had the red line on it. But then I remember when I got a little bit older, when I got to like 12, 13, and I'd started boxing for the Rotunda, and I'd get home as quick as I could off the bus from school, and my house was probably 50 yards from the Rotunda. So I wouldn't go home, I'd go straight to the Rotunda, and it was like Gary Lockett, Shane Airy, Paul Burns, Kenny Willis was training them, George Schofield was in there training them as well sometimes, Alex Moon, a couple of other Liverpool boxers. The pros were using the Rotunda, and I'd just sit and watch them for like the last half hour there session. I'd run home, I'd grab a quick sandwich, get my own kit and be back around there for 4:45 to start my own session at 5. Seeing the likes of Neri and the fights that he had and the atmospheres, I wanted a bit of that. I remember like that passion was definitely there, yeah.
Were you good at the start?
I had my first amateur bout in 94. I was 11, still in junior school, primary school. And I stopped the kid in the first round. I nailed him with a right hand and just went right back in with another one. My dad always said, if you ever give anyone a count, the next shot, straight right hand, straight away. If you land it, the ref stopping the fight. If you miss, come back with your left hook and fight. Just old tactics from my dad, who had a few amateur bouts. And I did exactly that and stopped him. And my lad's had 8 bouts now, but he's had 4 skills bouts as well, where there's no winner or loser. And I think it's great. Because if that had been the skills, I'd have got told to tone it down. The lad had to come out of his shell a bit. We'd have had a good bout. I'd have appreciated how hard the 3 rounds were. I thought it was easy, and he never boxed again. Next fight, I got punched all around the ring and lost on points. Unanimous 60-57, all 3 cards against a tough kid from Hayton, and learnt my lesson in the second fight. And then I slowly but surely sort of got better and better. When I was 14, I sort of fell into my own body shape, fell into my own style. I was stopping kids all the time with body shots mainly, and a couple of head shots as well. I won my first schoolboy title, stopping them in the final. I won my first junior ABA, stopping them in the final. My second one was points, but I stopped about 4 or 5 on the way up through it. And I always had more of a pro style than an amateur style, but I was adapting a lot to the amateurs. But yeah, I think, without being bigoted, I think I was good. I did have a bit of talent at the start, because you don't win amateur national titles if you're not.
And I've played you in a couple of charity football tournaments, and football was never an option for you, was it?
Got that one right. Football was never ever an option.
Although that said, you can get a good team of ringers together though.
Yeah,
can't you?
yeah, we did, yeah. But they're all Liam's mates who he plays with. Liam's a good player, and Liam still plays Sunday League, and he won a WBO title and turned up for Sunday League the next day and played 45 minutes. You know what I mean? He's round the bend, and he's playing like 8 weeks before the fight against big hairy ass Dorman who's got hangovers, who will end up breaking his legs on him. And
what was your first game at Anfield that you went to?
First game at Anfield, Phil Neal gave me the match ball, one of the warming up balls. They used to have like 4 or 5 balls that they warm up with, and I was only 4 or 5 I was, so must have been very early 80s.
So there's no going back from that.
No way, and I still thank him for it. I call him uncle, my uncle Brian. He's my mum's sister. It's her brother-in-law. I owe him so much for taking me to Anfield, and you know, it could have been one of my other uncles taking me to Goodison. So,
who's the best player you've seen in a red shirt down there then?
The best player I've seen, probably Gerard.
Is he a mate?
Yeah, he's a mate. He's a lovely lad. I've always got on with him.
From school?
No, I never went to school, to be honest with you. Yeah, good mate, but probably the best player I've seen this year. Him, closely followed by Suarez, Torres, John Barnes. For me, but it's just opinions. And it's like your favourite boxer, isn't it? Everyone's got their own favourites and thinks Ali's the best. I always think it's Sugar Ray Leonard.
ABA finals in 2001, you fought Martin Concepcion. Big puncher.
Yeah.
Was there a temptation to go pro once you won the ABAs?
No, never. End of 2000 I turned 18, so for early 2000 ABAs I wasn't old enough. Then the 2001 ABAs came, and the Rotunda has a rule that once you turn 18, if you're still 18, the year they start, you can't go in them. You need another year to mature. And it's just a personal preference by the Rotunda, but the coaches have always swore by. But it proved right, because I would have either boxed Matthew Thirlwall or Carl Froch. I'd have lost to both of them on strength alone because I wasn't mature enough. I had my year out the following year, 2002, going to the ABAs, and I win them. And in the semi, I had a dead strong fella, Kareem Saeed, I think his name was. And I think he was born in Syria, but he came over, he was about 32, 33 at the time. I'm only 19. And that would have been the fight where I would have lost by just being a bit too strong for me. And then I boxed Concepcion in the final again. Yeah, big puncher in the final. He caught me left. I got to stand and count the last round. It was just more out of a bit of fatigue from myself, really, because he never hurt me. I'm the first to throw my hands up. If I could tell you probably every shot I got hurt with in the amateurs, I got buzzed in, and I could tell you a lot of the shots in the pros, and it never hurt me. It just landed and made a bit of a noise, and the refs gave me a count, and there was about 20 seconds to go in the round, and I won on points. But then after that, all I ever wanted to do was win the ABAs, and I had to give anything to win I wanted to win the schoolboys, I wanted to win the ABAs. And I did that. I won the schools twice, won the juniors twice, and I won the ABAs. In 1 year, I did all 3 because I'm October born. So no plans to turn pro whatsoever, and I knew I wanted to go to the Commonwealth and I wanted to go to the Olympics. I got picked for the Commonwealth. I went there, I got a silver. I lost to Pascal in the final. But it was great just being in the ring with someone like that because of what he ended up going on to do in the pros.
Did you think he would go on to do that, Jean-Pascal?
I knew he'd be good. I knew he'd be a good pro.
Was he a lump then?
So strong. He hit me with a left hook. Now, talking about shots where I said I wasn't hurt, and I was hurt. He hit me with a left hook in the first round of our final. And it caught me, and the ref went stop, and I thought, yeah, probably deserve a count there. And the ref warned him for slapping. I thought if that was a slap, I don't want a proper punch.
I don't want him to punch me.
It caught me, buzzed me, and I remember thinking, wow. I remember just thinking, no, what, I can lie down, I'll go for it. I just went for it. And it was a good fight. I probably a little bit favoured on the scoring because I was the home fighter. I lost by 2 points. It was level with like 8 or 9 seconds to go. And if you watch the tape back, he looks up at the screen above to see the score. And I'm brand new and not as experienced as he was and didn't have a clue. I remember thinking, what's he looking up for? And then as soon as he's seen the score level, he's hit me with a left hook right hand straight away. And just danced and the bell went and that was it. Fair play to him. You know, tactics is something that I was still a bit green and didn't know. But back to the original question, sorry, no, I wasn't going to turn pro. But straight after them games, I was looking forward to trying to qualify for the Olympics. There's no guarantee that I would have qualified. There's no guarantee that I'd have even gone to the qualifiers. I felt that hopefully would have. I'd have given everything I had to do it. And then they got rid of 71 kilos. And it sort of just put me in a position because I was well too big for 69. And I wasn't big enough for 75. And I remember just looking at the fighters up there thinking, Pascal could probably move up and make that move. DeGale had a big frame. He probably could have gone up and done it. But the fighters that were at 75 at the time, I don't think I'd have been big enough. I remember going into the Rotunda, I had a few tears in my eyes. I was welling up a bit, telling Jimmy Albo, look, I know you're not going to be a pro coach. I don't want to leave. I don't want to turn pro, but I'm not staying around for 2 years to try and fill out and then not having it and not qualifying when I can turn pro now on the back of this. Get a good deal and start the pro. He said, I don't blame you, lad. He shook me hand and gave me a hug and he didn't give many hugs out. And I was just buzzing. I filled up. I went home and I thought, right, well, let's have a go with this then.
But the amateur days were good days for you, though, weren't they? Because I'm, you know, doing some research. You've been to Denmark, South Africa, Uzbekistan. Like you've done the rounds, and
I loved them.
I'm guessing you had some good roommates and some good laughs along the way.
Yeah, I'm actually the 2000 Uzbekistani 67 kilo champion. we entered their championships and I won a gold. It was me and Craig Lyon, I think, won gold. Gary Davis got a silver. My mate who was on the phone to me before, Joe Vaughan, he came over. Martin Murray was there. Lee Jennings. There was a couple of good fighters over there. Stephen Birch from St. Helens. But the trip, I've never experienced anything like it in my life. We were like 80 miles from the Afghanistan border. And apparently a couple of Japanese businessmen had been kidnapped from there, from the same place. We had like an armed guard with us. But that's the beauty of boxing. You get to experience places that you've probably always wouldn't have minded going, but wouldn't go because it wasn't safe. And when you go for the boxing, you sort of have that bit of safety with you because...
When you turned pro, what was the goal?
British champion, world champion, you know, like probably any
you
kid.
You say that like casually, but like that's to be world champion. That's a that's a big goal.
Not half. I say to me lad now, to be when you're older, world champion. And I think, well, you've got to aim high. You know, you've got to aim high. And I turned pro, and I won the British title in 2009 in a local derby, and it couldn't have gone any better for me. It was one of the best feelings I'd ever had in my life. But it still didn't beat winning the ABAs. I've seen fighters winning that British title thinking, I want one of them belts. And then you get it and you think, well, I want one of them ones now. And you've sort of, fighters who turn pro and think, I wouldn't mind winning an English title. No disrespect whatsoever to the English title, to a Central Area title. I've won them both. And the belt at the time felt like the WBC title to me. But if that's only your ambition and you're not really going to get anything, you've got to have high ambitions, in my opinion. You've got to turn pro and have a lot of belief and faith in yourself and confidence and think, you know what, world title. And if you fall short and you win a British title, that's an amazing achievement in boxing because not many people do it.
Were you working? Did you have jobs when you were a kid?
I left school and I went to work I left sixth form. Once I left sixth form, I went and got a job in the market stalls in town. With a great fella called Jake, who's passed away now. He was a nice fella. I loved it, and it was great. We'd have to be down in town for like 7:30ish, put the stall up, then go and have a bit of breakfast, come back, stand on the stall all day. take the stall down. So yeah, market stalls, and then I went in the tax office. My auntie used to work there, and she helped me with an application form, and I got a job in the tax office for about 8 months, 9 months, I think it was. And then I took a career break to go to Commonwealth because they wouldn't give me paid leave. And if I'd have been playing darts for the Inland Revenue, or if I'd have been playing table tennis for the Revenue, I'd have got all the time in the world off and paid for it as well. But because I was boxing for my country in the Commonwealth Games, in our home games, I didn't get a thing. When I come back after the Commonwealth, I got back in the office and I had an email off the chairman of the board saying, congratulations, been great, you know, it was fantastic watching you and seeing you over the press, and thanks for like the stories where you explain that you work for us and everything else, and if there's anything I could ever do for you, just please don't hesitate to reach out. So I just replied, hi, thanks very much, is there any way you can reimburse me for the three months unpaid leave I had to take to go and represent my country and win a silver medal like I did? I never heard nothing back. I took another career break then because I was just deciding what to do, and then I got a letter off them after my pro debut saying, we just saw this in the paper, we take it, you're not coming back, all the best. So I think I actually got sacked, even though I took the career break, yeah. So I did try and do them jobs, and I always DJ'd as well. I used to love that.
Do you remember your first meeting with Billy Graham?
Yeah, it was in the old gym up in Sail West. It was one of the Sail West gym up in Hyde, and I'd obviously seen him with Ricky on the telly all the time, but so I went with Billy from day one, and yeah, thankful for it because he taught me a lot. He taught me how to fight. He taught me how to, you know, a lot of the things where I'd like to think without blowing my own trumpet, I'm quite knowledgeable with boxing, but a lot of it's down to just the people that I've spoke to and the people that I've been around. And you've been around so many boxing people, you wouldn't know half the stuff you know if you didn't listen to their stories or the way they break something down to you. And he just had an analogy and a saying and a way of getting it across for everything like I've never seen before. You know, I loved him. It was great being around him.
You made your debut on the Hatton Vince Phillips bill.
Yeah, I sold 350 odd tickets, and the majority of them were ringside because it was a Hatton show. So I was buzzing. I made more out of my commission than I did on the fight, I think. I think I was getting $3,000 for the fight, and I think I made about the same in commission, just on tickets. And I was buzzing every time I got on Ricky's shows because they were great, and if I weren't on the show, I'd be going to the fight anyway, whether it be part of the gym or just as a fan. It was 6:30, there was only about 50 people who actually was allowed in at the start for the fight before me, and then my lot finally just like got in dead quick for the debut, and loved it, yeah.
Because you fought quite a few of those Hatton bills, so Hatton Bentaki, Hatton Peterson, Hatton Vilches, Hatton Stewart. They were great nights to be part of in some way, shape or form, weren't they?
Yeah, I was on the night before the Costa Zoo one as well, so I got to enjoy that.
At normal timers though.
Yeah, so I got to enjoy that whole show, probably after no sleep the night before. So I was buzzing at the time, but the ticket commission on the Hatton show was great. Plus, you know, again, not to sound geeky, but I was in the dressing room and part of that team, and I'd sparred them for them fights as well, because I used to use me and Macklin a lot for sparring. Again, something which I'm proud of and something that helped me raise my game a lot, sparring with him at the time. Even though he was a light welter at the time, everyone knows what weight he used to walk around and how big he was and how strong he was. He could hold his own middleweights all day. Me and Macklin were light middle, stoke middleweights, and we'd spar with him a lot, and it brought our game on a hell of a lot, sparring with him. But being part of that gym and part of that setup was something else. I remember the Bentaki one. I remember, again, talking about getting buzzed up and concussion. I got buzzed up that night. I won in the first round. I knocked him out. End of the first round, but he caught me with a left hook earlier on in the round. And he was a big light heavy. Steve Timms, his name was. I think he'd won 4 by knockout. Won 5 by knockout, lost 4 by knockout. So he was just a banger who probably couldn't take a shot. And I'm not disrespecting him saying that, but the record just to me, I thought, right, and Billy Graham, remember him saying, you know, can I swear on this because I don't know about the language, but I remember Billy Graham saying to me, look, he's probably just a fat fucker, so keep your hands up, keep your chin down, have a look at him in the first round. And when I got in the ring and I looked across, he looked like the shape you're in, or the shape my dad was in at the time. And I just thought, oh shit, I turned around and Billy went, okay, so he's not a fat fucker. Let's have a look at him first and see what he's like. So I come out and box, I thought I'm getting on my back foot, and I just jabbed through a few jabs, and he just landed his left hook. I don't remember nothing really from that point, apart from, I remember knocking him out, but I remember him smiling at me. And when everything's running through your mind, I'm thinking, you know I'm here, you know you've got me. Next shot, you're probably going to put me out here. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And he walked in, and I've hit him with the right hand, and he's dipped, and I've hit him with the left hook, and he's fell and collapsed on his leg, like Baranchuk the other night. Yeah. He's landed bad on his leg, and he never boxed again professionally. He'd done unlicensed after it. He got in touch with me about 10 years later and said I'd done me cruciates and me ligaments with that knockdown. But about 5 rounds into the tacky fight, I'm sitting 4 or 5 rows back with my dad. And I nudged my dad and I went, do you reckon Warren's going to lower me wages now? He went, what do you mean? I went, I've had my first loss. And he went, are you all right, lad? He went, you fucking won, you're all right. I didn't know where I was or not. I remember sitting there thinking I've lost. Because in my mind at the time, I remember thinking, I'm hurt, you're going to beat me here. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this is a bad performance because I've been hurt by you. But about 30 seconds ago, next minute, I'm showered, changed, sitting in my team tracksuit, watching Ricky, shouting for him. And then couldn't remember what happened in the fight. So that's like the first experience I had. I was on the tacky show.
Ricky ever hurt you to the body?
The last words he said to me when he did was, that's a 2-1, you scouts CUNT. So we had that relationship where I remember he'd done me with a body shot and he nailed me with a perfect left hook to the body. And I've stood back and nodded it and I went, good shot. And as I went to say shot, I went, and it felt like someone just stuck a knife in the side of me as it does. And I just went, whoa, when I put my hands up and I just dropped right to my knee. I couldn't breathe. I was trying my best to get my breath back. I couldn't breathe. And later on, we're in the bodybuilding side of the gym, Kerry's gym in Better Bodies, and we're eating like a breasted chicken, a bit of potatoes, and we're all having our dinner, having a bit of food before we head home. And he just said to me, tell you what, Smig, he said, you want tough fucker, lad. He said, I nailed you there. He said, and you nodded at me, and I thought, wow. He said, but then you breathed in, didn't you? I went, yeah. But about 6 months later, we were sparring again, and he caught me with a left hook to the body, and again, as soon as it hit me, I felt it, I go, whoa, and I've just sort of arm up, because I don't want to take another one off yet, but I don't want to go on the floor, but I'm done. And if you catch me again, you're going to crack them or break them, and if they're not gone already. But that was just him. I tell you, he was so competitive in sparring, and I learnt more sparring in than the majority of people that I did spar with.
After about 20 fights, you went to the USA for Contender Season 3. Saki Obika won. What was it like?
It was great. It was everything it was made out to be. But I had the opportunity to train with Buddy McGeer, who probably a couple of years before won Ring Magazine Trainer of the Year. He was on fire at the time. He had Vernon Forrest. He had a good gym in Vero.
Bringing Gatti back, wasn't it, at the time?
Bringing Gatti back. I think Gatti had just lost to me, possibly the year before, or the year after, 2 years before. But just to get that chance to work with him was great because I saw what he was doing in the Contender. I was trained by Pepe Correa, and now Pepe, to me, again, no disrespect, I don't mean this in a nasty, Pepe to me talked a great game, and probably whereas Buddy was full of substance. You know, I'll get to the start. In the Contender, it was great. The setup was brilliant. Everything was amazing. I got there and I'm in the house. And
Stallone was out of it by then.
Stallone was out. He was filming Rambo, I think. But Ray Leonard was there. You know, I loved it when I met Stallone. I ended up meeting him. I've met him a couple of times, and it was great because, you know, again, a lot of us boxers owe more to him than we do to actual boxers for getting people into boxing. Watching Rocky films made me want to be a boxer as well. But Ray Leonard, I idolised him, and I'd done since I was a kid. Like, I remember sitting there in the house when we had a bit of downtime. And we're outdoors, but they had a big white screen over the courtyard for helicopters and press and all that, because it was big. And I'm sitting there talking to him. I said, you know, my dad's favourite fighter. And it's weird still to this day, hey, Ray. I'm talking to him, calling him Ray. I get a message, I get a text on my phone every now and then, or a WhatsApp. Hey, Paul, how's things? How's life treating you? I hope you're good, Ray. I think, wow, Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, and it's little things where, like, unless you're a boxing geek or you love your boxing like us, you probably won't get it. So just to have that opportunity was something else. I was talking to him, I said, my dad's favourite fighter is Dave Boy Green. And my dad loved him. And, like, he broke his heart when you knocked him out. And he went, really? And he went, get me one of them gloves. So I ran and got a glove. And he went, his name's Paul as well, isn't it? And he went, to Paul Senior, I love Dave Boy Green too, Sugar Ray Leonard. When I come out the house and I give it to my dad, he was like, that for me? Went, yeah. He got home, he's got 4 sons who were all good boxers, won a lot, trophies, and he's got his own cabinet. The rule was anything you win while you're in that house stays in that house. So my Commonwealth medals there, and Stephen's ABAs, my ABAs, everything's all in that house. And he's just gone bang and lashed everything out the way and put his glove right in pride of place, right in the middle of his own cabinet.
You've already mentioned your hand a couple of times. You've had a nightmare with hands, haven't you?
Yeah, I did in the end. Looking back, I did. But if you asked me to have bad hands, I was fighting. I'd have always said no. I just had a little bit of bad luck here and there with them. Like the Crowe's fight, I'll never ever live that down. You know, I nailed him at the end of the first round with a right hand. I felt good. I trained really well. I'd done everything right. I had my tactics spot on, and I hit him at the end of the first round. And he stumbled back to the corner. And I remember Joe just stopping and going, "Look, he's gone." And I remember thinking in my head, "Yeah, but why hasn't he gone and nailed him there?" And I went to tense my fist, and I got a big shooting pain up my arm. And I remember just thinking, "Oh, it's gone. My hand's gone." I remember thinking, I've got 11 rounds here with George Groves. I've got him here, and I've got 11 rounds to go with one hand. I'm not going to be able to throw that. And I remember thinking, just dip, keep coming out to crouches, big left hooks, because all I've got now is my left hook, jab, left hook the body, because I can't throw that. There's no way on earth I was throwing that. And as I've dipped, he's threw a right hook to the body. Now, I'm the first to say there's no such thing as a lucky punch in boxing. You throw it, it lands. It doesn't matter where it lands, you've thrown it. Just caught me perfect right through. Didn't remember much after it because just my legs went completely. Never gone like that since or then. I've been well harder after it and well harder before. Just perfect shot, and that was that. But then operation. Mike Hatton, he always laughs and says, "I remember your date of birth," or "You don't want me remembering your date of birth," but he does. And it's you can either get the operation and keep your knuckle, or don't get it and lose your knuckle, which I've done on that one. The rest are okay because I've had the operations and it just helps you to prolong it. But I'm suffering a bit with them now. The all old age, and when it's cold, it starts to hurt. My grip's terrible. But I'm still adamant. I never had bad hands when I was fighting. You know, bad hands to me was always the likes of Calzaghe. It was always the likes of Joe Selkirk and other kids who I know where they couldn't do a full camp because of the hands were that bad. I never had that, thankfully. My hands, I used to wrap them well. I was okay. Fight night was the only time I ever used to hurt my hands or break my hands. I never ever did it in training.
But things had been going well, but then came Steve Bendel, and that was the first loss of your career.
Yeah.
And it was something you still disputed then. And in fact, I went back to my notes. I covered the fight, and I had you winning by a round. And I think that I think when we talked after that fight, you were a little bit cross with my report because you thought you won by more than a point.
Yeah, I had it by a couple of rounds at least, and like looking at McGuigan and other people who scored the fight and their opinion. ITV had me head, McGuigan had me head, I had me head, and when I watched the back, I thought there's no way on earth he won that fight. I won the fight, but I should never have even made it that close.
But it cost you though, didn't it? Because for let me just see. So that it seemed to set you back because you spent 2008, 2009 beating Danny Thornton, Kieran Healy, Matamula and Michael Belak before you fought Tony Quigley. So you seem to lose a lot of momentum with that defeat.
The Thornton fight, I broke my hand.
Right.
I knocked him out in the 6th or 7th. I broke my hand in the 4th. I remember sitting in the corner saying to George, "I've only got one hand, George." And he's going, "We'll throw the other one then." And I thought, all right then. Because I didn't want him to think I was being a prick, just go with my right hand, because my left hand had broke. But I said, "I've only got one hand, George." He just said, "Fucking throw it then." I remember thinking, okay, I've got to throw it. I threw it and I knocked him out. It was a good knockout, to be honest with you. And the pitches, I've got some great pitches, and not for Danny Thornton as such, he's flat out in the ring, but it was a great shot. And I remember a cut. I remember like that period just getting frustrated so much that I was getting cut every fight I had. And every fight it'd be a clash of heads and I'd get cut. And it wasn't until after I'd boxed Quigley when I did get cut again. And the Dodson fight I got cut bad after that. I went to a sports psychologist and she done a bit of NLP with me and
NLP?
Like NLP or CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. Just reprogramming how you think, basically. You know, I've always said the mind's a muscle. You know, I didn't have depression when I was fighting. I developed it after I was fighting. Looking back now, I think I had it a bit when I was fighting, when I lost to Crowe and broke my hand. I was in a bit of a bad place and wasn't right mentally, but would never sort of admit I had depression or I felt like I had depression. But it is all about what you tell your mind to think. So just sort of reprogrammed the way I was thinking and tried to do it better. But yeah, it was sort of quite like I remember the Kieran fight was like a comeback fight because I broke my hand and I'd been out for a while. I remember boxing him and I had a like big pair of gloves on, and then that Matumla one. I remember that being an international fight. I remember talking with Dean Powell a lot because I never really got to speak much to Warren at the time. It was always Dean on the end of the phone all the time. "Dean, what do you reckon on this? Look, I think you go for this, and then we can get you hopefully mandatory for the British because you've been English champion. There's no one really around at that weight. You want to move up to the weight. We suggest you move up to the weight as well. You're too big for middleweight. Have a go at that, and we'll try our best to make you mandatory. And they kept applying to the board, look, can he be mandatory challenging? Because we feel it'll be a good fight. It's Liverpool. He deserves the opportunity of this. And eventually I was made mandatory for the British. And then from then on, and it sort of took up at both hands, the opportunity.
You mentioned Quigley and Dodson there. You fought them back to back. Those Liverpool derbies are huge, aren't they? And there's a lot at stake for winner and loser, right? The pressure.
I was talking about it today. I remember in the press conference, we both said that much shit. I remember saying, whoever loses this is not going to be able to show the face in the city. And I've seen Tony Quigley twice in 10 years since the fight. 11 years it's been. We're from the same city. We used to see each other all the time. I just sort of knew it was that type of fight where, local derbies, it's just a case of you can't lose. That's it. Doesn't matter whether you box well or just don't lose because it's a local derby. It's going to be remembered forever and it's going to be in the record books forever. But for me, it wasn't necessarily about him. It was, I just want to be British champion. Finally got my opportunity to fight for the British title. Back to the Bendel loss. I remember thinking, at the time, like my world had ended. I remember feeling terrible and I'd lost my unbeaten record. But if I'd have beat Bendel, I'd have probably gone in with Darren Barker and it'd have been the same situation. And Darren Barker was a good fighter at the time. And I wasn't experienced enough, I wouldn't have been ready. And for me, especially after the Bendel performance and the one before that, I wouldn't have been ready for that. Stepping up in weight, winning the British title at the weight above. If Barker had stepped up, I'd have fought him, no problem. And as much as Dan had told you I'd have beaten of me, I'd have probably thought I'd have the beaten of him. If I'd have beat Bendel, which I never, I'd have been put in that state when I wouldn't have been ready. Because I wouldn't have had that little shock and that little wake-up call which I got from Bendel, which then helped me to go and fight at super middle the way I did.
Was there any thought of you not fighting your Liverpool rivals? Because we see fights, obviously you mentioned Ricky didn't fight Junior Witter, we've seen obviously Khan Brook, and that's possibly because there's a lot of pressure and high stakes on these British derbies. Is it more intense for a city derby?
Yeah, not half, and if neither of them had the British title, I'd never have fought them. I wouldn't have wanted to. I watched Tony growing up and he boxed, a couple of my mates out at Rotunda. They were all family friends. We all got on well when we were all boxing as amateurs. And to me, he was always a couple of years younger than me. And we could have never have boxed in the amateurs. But then when he turned pro and he stepped up to super middleweight, and the minute he won the British title, I wanted him straight away because it wasn't him, it was the belt. And I'm glad I said that before. It wasn't about him. It was always about the belt. Dodson, sparred Dodson a lot. Used to go and watch him train in the gym with the pros when he'd be training with the pros. Had so many rounds of sparring with him. Would never have wanted to box him if he never had the belt or if it wasn't for the title. But I had the belt and he wanted the belt and he wanted to fight as well, so we ended up fighting. But them local derbies, it's just don't lose.
So you had those two big Liverpool derbies. Then came James DeGale. It was a huge fight for the British title. He was only 8-0 at the time. I actually seem to remember picking him on Sky's ringside TV and then phoning you and saying, I think I've just picked James DeGale on Sky. Do you remember that?
You were right, weren't you?
Yeah, good pick that was.
Unfortunately, you were right, yeah. But I don't know. I wasn't.
You were mates with Chunky, weren't you?
Yeah. More Stephen Lee. Listen, I respect him a lot. I like the lad. I've got a lot of time for him, and having shared the ring with him, you do develop that sort of bond, don't you? As anyone who boxes will tell you. It's weird, but yeah, I respect him. I like the lad. He went on to achieve great things. It's like I keep saying about like the Bendel loss. I sort of conveniently forget about the Bendel loss because I felt I won the fight. I felt there was no one there apart from the ref on that night that gave it to Bendel. I thought he won. And apart from that, not only myself but my brothers, we've only ever lost to world champions. They weren't world champions at the time, but they went on to win titles. Groves, DeGale, Abraham, Canelo, Stephen with Selby, and the likes. It's world champions, and it's a good sort of calibre to be in with the DeGale fight. I just didn't get it right training wise. I didn't really have any tactics going in. That's my fault only, no one else's, not the trainers, not anyone's. It was just my fault. I just didn't sort of have a game plan going in there. And
was it a humbling defeat?
Yeah, but
at home.
Yeah, and immediately just made me have a rethink and a restructure on what I felt like I was going to do and what I wanted to do. And to be honest with you, I remember sitting there with Macklin I had to chat with him, and I remember just saying to me about, you know, Joe, and to be fair to him, Joe Gallagher, I knew him from the amateurs, but I remember thinking it's a big gamble because Joe's only just technically turned pro himself with John Murray. Didn't have any experience in the pros, and I was all about experience. Billy Graham, Buddy McGirt, George Vaughan, been on the game for a long, long time. For me, experience was probably better than a young, hungry trainer at the time. And I remember my missus saying, look, just don't take any gambles, just this close to the fight, just go through with the fight. But I saw the stuff he was doing at Macklin. John Murray was flying. I remember went up for my first session. You know, after that fight, in the hotel, I was sitting in the hotel, in the Geordie's hotel. And I thought every fight I have, I go out, I go to the hotel and I see everyone in the bar area. I don't really go out, I've never had an after party, I don't do all that. But I go and just sit in the hotel bar, facing in the Geordie's, and have a drink with people who've, you know, spent the time and the effort to come and watch me. Used to have couples coming from Belfast and down in London, everyone else would just go and say thanks, basically. So after I lost, I thought, I can't shy away. I've got to go and see them and thank them for coming again, you know. And when I got there, Joe Gallagher come over to me straight away and he said, I like what you're doing. He said, you know, you're always out when you win. You got to come out when you lose as well. And it's brave. He said, but where is everyone? You know, you're sitting by yourself. Your brothers are sitting there. You're there. There's no one else around you. And I thought, there isn't. I was struggling to warm up in the dressing room with the amount of people in the way. And then when I lost, it was my brothers, my missus, taking my boots off. And you've heard that old story before, but it was the case. I remember thinking, this is.
You realise who your friends are.
Yeah, it's not right, and it's not that like George or anyone wasn't my friend. He just had a fucking long night, and he'd lost himself. Probably weren't happy with my performance. I weren't happy with the performance. He probably just got off and gone, and nothing against him whatsoever. But I remember just thinking, you know, there's something not right here. I couldn't move in this changing room, and I remember shouting at people to get out of my way and let me warm up before the fight. And now the changing room's empty, and my brothers are taking my boots off. And I remember thinking, you know, this game stinks. It's wrong, and I needed to make a few changes. I remember getting up to Joe's and my first session with Joe. I said to Joe, look, can I come and see you sometime and have a talk with you? He said, Paul, whenever you want. You know, he didn't poach me, he didn't ask me to come. I asked him. I said, I was going to speak to you ages ago, Joe. I said, but I never got round to it. And I went up and Macklin said to me, I remember like he was in the middle of a round, he said, thought I was fit till I come here, Smig. And I carried on. I remember thinking, nah, I've seen you fit. I've seen you in some good shape. I remember you were Buddy. I remember you were Billy. You've been in shape. Jamie Moore fight, you know, he couldn't have gone as far as he did if he wasn't in serious shape. I remember thinking, no. And then after the first session, I got there and he told me the warm-up, John. I remember thinking, he's at the bollocks in. This isn't a warm-up. I'm done. This is the warm-up.
That's the workout.
And that was the warm-up. And then there's the likes of Crowe, Macklin, John Murray. Young Joe Murray was there at the time. And you have to raise your game then, you know, to fit in with them. I didn't have a belt. They all had belts. It took me a while to get my belt. They had belts, and then Crowe won the British, beat John Watson, and then my brothers came over, you know, because I'd gone, they followed, and we obviously all never looked back from there. You know, it was a great setup, good environment, but yeah, the DeGale fight, very humbling, but again, you know, had to happen, and it had to happen because for everything that came from that, Groves DeGale, everything that came from that fight after that, you know, it wouldn't have happened that way if I'd have won that fight by whatever means. It wouldn't have all happened the way it did. You know, everything panned out for a reason and it worked.
Who was the better out of Groves and DeGale?
It's a good question. The worst for me was DeGale. All day, every day. I'd rather fight Groves 10 times a week. Even though what happened. It was more my style. DeGale was a nightmare for me and a nightmare for most people of my style.
Who had the better career then out of those two?
Groves was a very good fighter. Groves, because it probably wasn't as expected as much from him. DeGale, because of what he did in the amateurs and financially what he did in the end. You know, I think even though Groves with the Froch fights and everything else in the tournament, he's made a good few quid out of it. But I'm not sure who probably made the most out of them too because of the Olympic career and the world title fights. They probably ended up on par money-wise. Maybe Groves a touch more, but...
Is that how you see it in terms of business? Is that when I say to you who's had the better career, is that how you instantly think it's a money thing? Who's got the best out of the game?
At the moment in the mindset that I'm in, yeah. You know, unfortunately that's how it goes sometimes. But listen, both of them achieved fantastically. I loved the way Groves kept going, and won it on his fourth attempt. Brilliant, inspirational. I loved how DeGale fought and went through it. Olympic gold medal, first world champion from Britain to win a world title after winning Olympic gold.
And then went on the road and did all that.
And then went on the road and did it the hard way and beat some very good fighters as well. Both of them should be very, very, very proud of themselves. The family should be very proud of them, and more importantly, or less importantly, but as important, the gym. You know, 2 kids from the same gym to go on and do things like that. That did a credit to the sport.
Did you think after back-to-back losses with DeGale and Groves, did you think you would still win a world title or fight for a world title?
Yeah, definitely. I never if I'd have stopped thinking that or lost any hope whatsoever of doing anything in boxing again, I'd have never gone to Joe. I'd have never started back up. I'd have just spewed it. And
how would you have felt if you were the only Smith brother not to win a British title?
Not to win a British, sick. Not to win a world. I couldn't complain with that. Yeah. You know, and good on me.
But if you were the
good
one,
on me 3 brothers for winning if they did. But yeah, off was the one. Yeah, they'd been sick. I was lucky I was the first though, so that was sort of in the camp on it. You know,
yeah.
I'm buzzing out. I've done mine. The pressure's on you now. The pressure was on Paul Callum. You know, and he couldn't win it because I had it. Until I vacated it, he couldn't win it. But yeah, I'd have been worried. Like I wouldn't have been able to hold my own in any argument with them. Put it that way. But you know what? When I turned pro. If you'd have told me before I turned pro, before I even put gloves on, you're going to win 2 British titles, you're going to be British champion, you're going to get a chance to talk about your arena in your city, which we never had. You know, you're going to get a chance to fight for world titles in Germany. Like Arthur Abraham, I remember asking him for a picture in the O2 Arena. You know, when he came over to commentate on Froch, I think it was Froch Kessler, possibly, and I asked him for a picture. I just thought, you know, he's a good fighter. I've never had any like qualms about asking people who I admire for a picture or to chat or for an autograph or whatever. And I asked him for the picture, and I actually used it against him in the press conference, like, you know, because I just thought I want him to just think I'm a fanboy. I was like, oh, it's just great to be here. You know, I asked Arthur for the picture. And I think it worked, because I think he went home and just completely underestimated me and thought he's just a fanboy and, you know, we're going to get him out of there. Because he was certainly better in the rematch. But with pictures, we were talking before about the Hatton Costa Zoo fight. And I just turned up in my team tracksuit on. I had 4 bottles of Budweiser on each side of the jacket because I'd fought the night before. And just sitting backstage with one of the Sky cameramen who I really liked, Caney, lovely fella, just sitting there having a drink, and he couldn't have one because he was fighting. He was working and the fights were on. And then I just seen Russell Crowe walking towards us. That's Russell Crowe, isn't it? So literally I asked him for the picture, and he was Gladiator, but he had a coat on with a bulldog on. He was filming Cinderella Man at the time, although I didn't know it. I said, do you like bulldogs? Because I bred them at the time. And so in the end, I just got a bottle. I said, do you want one? He went, yeah, go on. Took the bottle, bit the top off, give me a bit more. I've sat there, standing in the backstage in the dungeons of the MEN, the back bit, just having a drink with Russell Crowe. And he was just standing there, like, having a smoke and having a bottle of Bud, talking with him for about 15 minutes. Finished his drinks and listened to... I was asking about the film. I said, who trained you for it then? He said, Angelo Dundee. I thought, wow. Said, really?
That's legit, yeah.
He said, I've got him in the movie. I said, what did you think on him? I said, was you listening to him? Because you forget, like, he's not a boxer like us. Yeah. If we were Angelo Dundee, we're not letting him breathe or speak. We're just going to question. But for him, it must have been some experience getting trained. He said, we got him in the film and we really looked after him and that. And obviously I've seen the film since. And Caney took a picture of us, lost his camera. I've never let him live it down. But then the next day, he's on the front page of all the papers all around the world with his hands behind his back in the same coat. Got arrested for throwing the phone at the hotel porter. So the following day after the fight, he's flown straight to New York and got arrested in New York.
Because you got him pissed up.
Yeah, I got him on the buzz in the MEN, but it was great. And like little things like that, yeah, you know, you'd always remember them. And
so you taught bulldogs with Russell Crowe. You've taught pigeons with Tyson as well, haven't you?
You know when I always wanted to meet him. He was my favourite fighter growing up. Him and Ray Leonard. But if you'd asked me what probably got me into boxing more, it was Tyson, and then Ray Leonard probably kept me into boxing. But Tyson Frank Bruno fought against Tyson, didn't he, in Vegas in 87, 89. So I was 7. I keep saying 87 because I was 7. So I'm lying in bed and my mum's come in and woke me up and said, Paul, Tyson won. And I'm going, yes. And then just going back asleep. I must have been the only kid in the country who wanted Tyson to win, but I loved him. And I had a picture of him like above my bed. I had a picture of him above the stairs as you walk down the stairs. And I'd look at it and I'd look at him and think, I want to be like you, fighting wise. And I want that belt around your waist, the WC belt. And I just think, I want them. I want to be a boxer on the globe. It was a black and white pencil portrait of him with Mike, the tattoo, the old one where he had. And I just loved it. Loved him. Loved watching him. My favourite video what I had, apart from the Fabulous Four, was Mike Tyson's Greatest Hits. And so when he come over and I finally got to meet him, I remember thinking, you know, like someone the lad who was put the event on was like, Mike, this is Paul. He's like British champion, good boxer. I just felt embarrassed thinking, mate, don't say what I've won in front of him. yeah, tell me I'm a boxer, brilliant, that's great, but he's got some British title, what's that? Well, he's Mike Tyson. It was just a pleasure to actually just be in the same room as him, never mind speak. But then I was lucky because for an hour or so, I had to sit backstage while he was just signing gloves, but he's talking to me while he's doing it. So I thought, you know what, I've raced pigeons and kept pigeons since I've been about 5 myself. So I said that I've always sort of followed you, and I know obviously with the boxing, and me and my brother's all boxers, but look at that. And I just showed him a picture of me loft. He went, that yours? I went, yeah. I said, I've raced them since I was like 5. And he just went bang, like grabbed hold of me, and he broke my neck, and like pulled me in for like a big hug. And he's talking, he's going, show me that one. He's like, show me. And he's just going through my phone, looking at all these pigeons. He goes, I used to have 10 of them. And I'm sitting thinking, wow, it was like the most surreal moment of my life, sitting there. And like everyone's like, Mike, and he's going, yeah, in a minute. And he's doing this and he's doing that, and he's going, in a minute, just wait. And he's looking at these pigeons. And it was something else. He just started his vegan diet at the time. Right. So he'd lost a fair bit, because I'd met him before that at Main Road when Hatton fought Lascano. And he was massive at the time. I remember him being big. He was probably filming The Hangover at the same time, because he was big on that. But my first impressions of meeting him were bad, because I remember thinking, you're like a drugged tiger being brought round in a circus. Sedated. People, yeah. And he looked sedated, and he looked like he wasn't all there, and he was just ready to snap any minute. And I remember thinking, I wouldn't want to be on that side if he did snap, because there's not a fella near that could stop you. And I've got a boss picture upstairs or somewhere in the house. It's me, Macklin, Ricky Hatton, Oscar De La Hoya, and Tyson, all just standing in a circle talking. And again, like back to what you say about like where you start and all that. Me growing up, walking down the stairs every day, looking at a picture of this fella, and I'm standing 20 years later, whatever it might be, like having a full-blown conversation with him about boxing and just being lucky enough to be in that scenario. Part of the group, yeah. And it's only because of boxing. And it's only because of going around the Rotunda and just sticking at it and learning it and falling in love with it.
First Abraham fight, do you think you won that?
100% yes. And I watch it back, or I watched it back, should I say. Like I don't watch fights, I certainly don't watch my own. But I don't watch it back. But when I have watched it back, I've watched it and I've scored it. I've just thought, there's no way on earth he won 7 rounds. No way. And if people want to say it was a draw, fine. But it wasn't that type of fight. My fight wasn't 12 close rounds. The rounds I won clearly. The rounds he won, he stole and won clearly. In a close fight where every round's close, if someone scores at 12 rounds to 0, I'll have that all day, because they were tough rounds to score. But if a fight's not close, if 4 rounds clearly go one way, 4 clearly go the other way, and 2 are swing rounds, if you want to call them a 10-rounder, then you're going to get a close decision. With mine, there's 7 rounds that I felt I won. I knew on the night, I knew as soon as the bell went, I'd done enough. And watching it back, I think, you silly bastard. Because I had my hands up and I was genuinely thinking, they're going to score it correctly and they're going to give me it. And I think I've done enough. I know I've done enough. I know looking at him, he looks a beaten man. I got the better of him. I gave it me all, and I've done it, and I've won it, and I'm world champion. I remember I was visualising the belt for months and months and months before. For years, as I've done, as I say, with things when I was a kid, I remember thinking, I've got this. And they read the scores out. I just remember thinking, you bastards. 11 rounds to 1. And the rest obviously happened, but I won that fight. I should have been world champion. That should have been the biggest box tick for me. I probably could have retired in the ring, but what happens is then, is your first defence, you're getting life-changing money. And my rematch wasn't life-changing money because on paper I lost the fight.
You were still a challenger.
Yeah, I'm still challenging again. Then the fight with Andre Ward wasn't a former world champion he's fighting, it was a former world title challenger.
Did you have the same hunger going into the rematch with Abraham, or did you feel like you'd left a bit in your disappointment there? Had a bit of the life sucked out of you with that?
Looking back, I probably did have a little bit sucked out of me, but yeah, I felt the hunger going in. I knew I'd be better. I was better, but he was a lot better.
When did you get the call to find out you might be fighting Andre Ward?
Sitting on a beach in Marbella with my missus and the baby.
Were you confident going into the Ward fight?
Confident I'd catch him, but I certainly wasn't confident that I'd outbox him. No. And I went in there to win. I went in there thinking I could win. But I knew for a fact that the only way I'm going to win is if I nail him. And I felt like I could nail him. I've seen him go down before, and that was enough for me. Listen, I've seen the Boone fight. I've seen him get knocked down. I've seen him get hit. I know I can hit him. I've just got to nail him. I've just got to land. I remember landing a belter shot, good right hand, right on the chin. He just come back and hit me with about 3 or 4. But he's the best I've ever been in the ring with. remember getting caught with the first jab, and I sort of smirked to myself and thinking, fucking hell, you're good. You know, you just think, wow, where did that come from? I didn't see it, you didn't telegraph it, you didn't show me that. Carl Liam says something similar when he fought Canelo. He's come out and Liam's just feinted to jab the body. The next jab he's feinted and Canelo's laid back, and he thought, wow, he's setting me up with this right hand straight away. And like not even 15 seconds gone on the clock. But being in the ring with someone like him, you know, he was so strong inside physically, and I knew that from watching the Froch fight and a few other fights. He wasn't the biggest puncher in my opinion, but you don't have to be when you're at that level, and the strength that he had, the physical strength. His ring craft was the best I've ever seen.
What was the deal with the weight? Because you came in heavy, and then you came in heavy again the following morning with a check weigh. Were you trying to come in big?
No, I just fucked up. Simple as, you know. A lot of problems outside the ring. I was in a court case at the time with my ex-manager. Little things like, no excuses. My fault. I cocked up. That's it. That's my fault.
Should that have been your last fight?
Looking back, hindsight, possibly, yeah. But as I said, you know, things outside the ring, court cases, things going on. You know, sometimes bills need paying, things need doing, and you know, possibly. But again, I just felt I still had a little bit more left. Things.
Were you satisfied instantly with what you'd done in your career?
No, because of the Abraham fight.
Right.
But again, you know, we've had this conversation before. If you'd have told me before I ever started boxing, or when I just started boxing, what I'd achieve in boxing, more importantly, without sounding big headed, what I'd sort of paved the way a little bit for my brothers, you know, and help them get involved in it and help them do what they've done, because they've done unbelievably well, then I'd have been more than happy with that.
Is there anyone you didn't fight that you wanted to fight, or thought you'd fight?
I thought I'd fight Darren Barker, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm probably glad I never, because we were mates on the England team, still mates now. But looking back now, after I'm retired and thinking I'm never going to fight again, I'd love to probably test myself against him, and you know, fighters of that quality. What he did was great, going on to win the world title, and after losing his brother the way he did, and brilliant story, great story, and I liked the lad. But yeah, it would have been nice fighting him. I'd never have fought Michael. I'm glad that never happened.
Did you fight John Duddy in the amateurs?
Fought John in the amateurs, yeah, in the Four Nations. Again, it was a week after winning ABAs. I've been on the ale twice on the Saturday and Sunday. I just thought, you know, I'm just buzzing. I've won the ABAs. I'm made up. I'm buzzing. But then I finally got to go over. Yeah, I lost on points at Duddy. I'd have liked to have boxed him as a pro. Either being good. Talking about the Contender, I wouldn't have minded fighting Beaker fit, but I wasn't, and I was in no position whatsoever to fight him. The state I was in at the time, with the hand and the cut on my nose. Calzaghe, for me, wouldn't have wanted to fight Calzaghe. You know, just to be able to get in there and test yourself against someone like him. He was one of the best, you know, but I could never have obviously fought him at the time. He was well ahead of what I was. I was on some of his undercards, thankfully. Or one of his undercards, sorry. But
that was the big fight, wasn't it? You were on that undercard.
Yeah, and I was meant to be on the Lacey one, but the fight never happened. I was meant to fight Hussein Osman on the Lacey fight, but every fight, Bradley Price and a couple of others all went the distance. So I fought the week later. I still got paid, thankfully, but I wasn't asked about the money at the time. I remember getting me check thinking I don't even want, I just want the fight. But then I fought the week later. So yeah, out of all of them at the time, the only ones who were really around, I'll tell you what, it'd been nice to fight Carl Froch as well, but only when I'd matured and filled out and been as experienced as I was maybe when I fought Abraham. That'd have been something else to be able to fight someone like him, because he was an animal and he was so strong and very good at what he did and had a fantastic career. It would have been nice to share the ring with people like that, but we're sort of weird boxers, aren't we? You know, I've seen a fought Warden, it was a pleasure, it was a painful pleasure, but it was an absolute pleasure being in the ring with someone like that.
Are you disappointed that you didn't get the big Smith Anfield night?
Yeah, because it could have happened.
With all of you?
Yeah, whether it be because of the club or anyone else, I'd have come back for that, no problem. I'd have fought a 6-rounder against absolutely anyone just to be on the show with my three brothers and to top the bill. My brother topping the bill at Anfield, you know, that would have been something else, having our own show there. But, you know, it just never happened. It was one of them things.
Okay, so Paul, I've got some questions here from the guys on Patreon. Nick Taylor asks, Paul seemed to attract a lot of stick online, probably more than most. How frustrating, difficult was that for you to deal with? And what advice would you give to upcoming boxers about online trolls?
My advice would be, just don't even go on it. Because as much as fans and good people and people like who's asking the question, Nick, you think, you know, you're probably a nice fella. That's a nice question to ask, and you're right. And I'd sit and talk about boxing with good, decent people till I'm blue in the face. But I've got that attitude that I wouldn't say anything to anyone on there that I wouldn't say to their face. I wouldn't just walk in and say, Tris, your last book was fucking shite. And I thought it was crap. And you're not even a good writer. Because I'd expect a smack off you, or I'd expect an argument, or I'd expect who are you talking to like that, you know. And it's just basic sort of courtesy and manners. And my advice, unfortunately, for the good people and the good boxing fans and the good people on there would be, just don't engage, because it's not worth your aggro or your time, because you can't also read what's being said in the tone that I'm saying.
It's taken out of context.
Yeah, a lot of it is sometimes, yeah, and probably the way I say things sometimes, you know, even tweeting's hard, isn't it, as you'll know, trying to fit it all into one tweet, sometimes when you've got a lot to say, or sometimes when you're just trying to get your grammar correct or anything else, it's like a minefield. If you get some good people on there, you have good conversations, then it's great. You know, I've met a few people on there through the boxing who tweet regularly, who you end up giving a follow back and you speak to, and they're good people and just like the boxing. There's just so many assholes on there that I'd advise not really.
Craig Brookfield, did being on the Contender benefit your career as much as you hoped it would? And are there any funny, interesting stories from behind the scenes?
Not as much as I hoped, because I wanted to win. You know, I had the money spent. I remember thinking, you know what, I can win this, and I fancied myself against them. Beaker was the one to beat. But the format was strange. It was new, it was different, but it was great, and it benefited my career a lot. Publicity-wise and opportunity-wise, to get a chance to go and fight in the States and train with Buddy and be involved in that side of the game, where I ended up very experienced, probably a bit quicker than I expected to be, because I was training over in America, and you know, because you've been over there that much and in them gyms and around them gyms and training in them yourself with top coaches and fighters, it's a different ball game over there. It's totally different to set up. I love going to Wildcard. I love going every time I've been in LA. I've gone in, and even when I've retired, I've done a little session in there. I've gone in and just stood around there for half an hour. Remember when I first went in there, Freddie Rowe trapped my hands. It's like my own coach is standing over there. And Joe went asked, it wasn't about that. It just, you know, getting your hands wrapped off one of the best to ever coach, in my opinion.
Part of the
you
experience.
learn from another top coach, and it's just experience and just being around them gyms. It's great. So the Contender sort of opened the door for that for me. So yeah, great.
Liam Tyre asks, I'm a huge fan of Paul. He's genuinely in my top 5 fighters. I've got an autistic nephew, and the work Paul and the rest of the family do for that is phenomenal. I'd like to know if Paul has any regrets in his career, i.e. taking the wrong fight for approaching a fight with the wrong attitude.
Yeah, I've already mentioned it, the DeGale fight a lot. Taking fights, you know, the Ward fight will always be a regret, because, you know, I felt it was, I should have just done it the correct way and done it a bit earlier. You know, I can't make excuses up and say, oh, I had an operation on my elbow. The buck stops with me. That's it, should have happened. But I think I've had a few conversations with Liam. I remember his name off the social media, off Twitter and that, because I boxed a lad in the amateurs called Liam Jones. I think his name was Taz Jones, and I always used to think, is that him? And then I got into the name, it wasn't. But I've seen his name a few times, Liam. Yeah, so regrets, I think everyone will have a few, won't they? You know, even the people who say they haven't got regrets, there'll be a few deep down.
He also says, where does the Real Gone Kid Deacon Blue association come from? And how did you feel when Liam and Stephen decided not to walk out to Deacon Blue?
They were always going to do their own thing. Stephen loves his Mr. Brightside, his karaoke song, and Liam was always going to just do what he did. That's a lie, not a Real Gone Kid, do what I should have did. Just, my dad did a bodybuilding competition in 1994, I think it was, and just like Mr. Liverpool or something. I remember watching him on stage, just feeling so proud. He done fucking great, he done brilliant. He'd come down from about 19 stone to about 14, and you know yourself with the type of training you do, how tough it is to build good muscle and to get your body fat down and compete, and how to do that. And I'm just so proud of him, because he always been into his bodybuilding, but he never ever competed. I remember watching him on stage, and his routine was the Real Gone Kid, and we were always having Deacon Blue on in the house. I could name you any Deacon Blue song. I've been to see them more times than I can remember. And we always loved Deacon Blue growing up when we were kids. So when I'm still amateur actually, and they said, look, you can have some music on, come to the ring, what you want. And I just thought, you know what, go on, Deacon Blue, Real Gone Kid. And then when we got to the Commonwealth Games, a photographer, Mike Cleary he was doing all like mini cards for us with all our details on the back, what we'd won, what we'd done, and like, big England flag behind us with your name and then your nickname underneath. He said, what's your nickname? I said, well, Smigger, but I don't want that as like my fight nickname. Everyone calls me Smigger. My wife calls me Smigger. She's never called me Paul in her life. She got introduced to me as Smigger. I've been married for 9 years, nearly 10 years, and she calls me Smigger to this day. And I remember thinking, no, I can't have that. So I think, what can I have for a nickname? And I remember thinking, I can't be like Hitman or Smasher or something. I'm thinking, I can't have something stupid like that because it's going to live with me. I thought, you know what, Real Gun Kid, I said, try that. And then he put that underneath, and that was it. It just stuck. Then, so when I had my first pro fight, I thought, no, I want that song on. And I loved the song, and then from then on, it was every fight I ever had. It was that song, and it just stuck. But yeah, that was it. Deacon Blue, and you know, I've been lucky enough. Again, only through the boxing. I've been very lucky enough to get to know them, Ricky and Lorraine and Deacon Blue, and I've been to a good few concerts, and they've invited us to one up in Glasgow. Me and my wife went to, and obviously to complete it all, when we got married, we had another Deacon Blue song as our wedding song, so we're stuck with them and they're stuck with us.
Brilliant, mate. Well, thank you so much for your time and having us in the house. I really appreciate it. It's really good to catch up after all this time, mate.
Yeah, great. Thanks for finally getting me on.
Thanks, mate.
Great. Cheers.